Hello, and welcome to Terrestrial Takes. Today, we're going to be talking rookies. So sit back, relax, and let's get it on. All right, welcome back to Terrestrial Takes. We're back from vacation. I'm your host, Duchesnes, joined as always by Tim at Nubs, double N, double B. How you doing?
Good. We're getting the warm weather now, but I'm dealing with a little bit of joint pain, so I'm hoping that goes away, but I'm just dealing with it for now. We got that. I posted a retweet and like piece yesterday about trying to get Sleeper to add some personal ranks to Sleeper for us to be able to move stuff around, and we're over 400 and some likes now, so it's pretty good within the first 20 hours of the post. So
yeah, that'd be a great addition to Sleeper Drafts. Speaking of drafts, we're going to be talking drafts with one of the best. We got Kevin at DuBois_22 from Fantasy Football Guys, and he's also the Devi Royale co-host. They also have a Patreon. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. I'm glad to meet you guys and talk a little football. We're 2 days away from the draft. I'm over. I'm kind of tired. I got draft itis going on right now. I'm just ready to see where these guys go, and so we can just argue more about that.
Yeah, burnout's getting a little real, but soon it'll all come to fruition. We'll have rookie drafts, and takes can start formulating. And speaking of takes, why Malik 101?
Well, yeah, look at that. No lubrication. Nope. What I would say for me, like if you're going to draft him there, now this comes down to, in my opinion, team makeup always. But if you're in this, you got the 1-1, you earned it. I feel like a quarterback in this format, especially with Malik, with his rushing upside, is going to hold his value. And I think we've argued about this for a while now. But it doesn't mean that I don't like Brees. So I want everybody to know, like, I understand the people that take Brees. Like, I understand those guys. But for me, just based on value, what we saw with Trevor Lawrence, what we saw with Jalen Hurts, and I will be honest, with what we saw with Jalen Hurts and how he did last year, and with that team, which I think that Willis is a better passer than Jalen Hurts is, and he has the rushing upside. Like, why not you can draft Willis, take him. You have him for a year, at least 2 years, which he's probably going to get. If he starts right away and he looks good, now you're going to increase his value. Now you can ship him. And it's more of a value play to me. That's where I come from.
So I came in a little dry. It was more of a joke for myself because when I was making up these questions to send to you, only the first one sent real quick, which was just why Malik 101.
I figured that's all we're doing, baby. That's
yeah, that's it. That's the track. That's the whole pod. Yeah. So it looked like I was just hopping into your DMs to be like, dude, why Malik 101? But yeah, this is something that we've sort of had fun with in our in mock drafts that we do. I am little lower on Malik, but when you talk about Hurts, I think Hurts' whole thing and the great value with him was he was like a mid-second round pick in super flex drafts. He obviously didn't have the capital or the hype, and so that's why he was going there.
Yeah.
Is Hall in the same tier, or is it a clear cut 101 for you?
No, he's in the same tier. I'm not crazy here, Duchesne's. I think that it just depends on your roster build. Like if you moved up and you're in that area and you really don't need Malik, if you have two quarterbacks you feel comfortable in Superflex, then I think Hall is the guy. But if you feel like your team's kind of in a rebuild, I don't mind going after Malik, because when I do rebuilds or if I'm looking at my teams and I'm not comfortable with where they're at, I'll take the quarterback every time, because a running back to me is a 2-year asset. It's not something that I like to keep on my roster that much. I like to churn them. And Hall, like, I don't know if I can get back what I could get back from Malik if Malik does well, or I could keep him and now I have a quarterback in Superflex for the next 8 years.
So my counter argument would be that I think that running backs, especially lately, have improved their value after their first year. And I know there's also the argument of best player available. And I know we all say that, but at some point you're sitting there with one quarterback. It's kind of, it'll be hard to pass up a Malik, especially if he gets a good landing spot, which we'll get to. But it's something that I've noticed of late, that like these quarterbacks, they do hold the value decently, but they they don't increase their value, especially these early quarterbacks, nearly as much as these running backs have. I mean, especially like even like Javonte Williams of last year, like he's a top 3 round asset now, and so that's what it's just something I've thought of as far as the safety of taking the quarterback in a rebuild.
Also, what about trading that 101 or 102 back and getting multiple picks and multiple players?
ROI, baby.
You got to go back, because I think there can be an opportunity where it can be a trap for rebuilding teams to try to lock in quarterbacks. I don't want to say too soon, but they might put too much of their available capital into one position when they really have to fill 5 or 6. And I understand where you're saying where you could draft them and then move them and get more picks later, where in maybe even before you even select them, you're going through those avenues trying to locate the just the better value or the better deal for your overall roster.
No, I think that's excuse me. I think that's a good point. I will say though, if you have the 101 and you need 5 or 6 spots to fill, even in a rebuild like that, and that's the only pick you have, you suck at fantasy, right? Like in reality, like if you have the 101 and you have 5 or 6 needs, you should have multiple first. So it shouldn't matter where you take these guys. Like if you're taking Willis to the 101, and I can take Hall or maybe get these wide receivers and build through them. But to your point, like yeah, if you can trade back, that's fine. I will say it's been harder for me. Or in other leagues that I've seen, I haven't seen the 101 get moved, and I'm in a lot of leagues because I'm a degenerate. Have you guys seen the 101 get moved? Because I haven't.
I've traded for it like 4 times,
okay.
And there's one where I can't get it, and I've been offering a lot. They finally they caught on to my 101 hype. I haven't seen another one move though.
With it moving though, are in the leagues that you're seeing the 101 in. Are you more or less assuming it's going to be Breece and that's why it's not going to be moved, or that they're leaning towards Willis? Because I feel like in the leagues in which they're the 101 person owning the 101 is less likely to move it if they're targeting Breece, because they're more likely to be a playoff team or a competing team. So that could have more impact or just even background on why it's not moving, where then the 102 may become a lot more lubricated and easier to move.
Lubrication twice in one pod. I love it.
That.
I had to steal it because we apparently didn't have enough to start. So.
It brings up a good point, actually. If the 101 is owned by the 101 team, you might want to target that 102 if you're looking for Hall, because they might take Malik, thinking that they have a complete rebuild at that draft position. So, best Malik landing spot. What do you think?
Yeah, I was thinking about this today as I was doing some of my prop bet stuff. I like the Seattle landing spot in a weird way. I do think that it could fit him well if they keep the weapons, if they keep Lockett and DK there. I think if he went to the Lions, that would be one of the best fantasy landing spots for everybody involved, because Goff is trash. Like I'm done with Goff. I've been done with Goff for years. If you put him on that team and you have Amon-Ra, you have all those guys out there, Swift, Hawkinson, Chark, if they draft a wide receiver, like that would be 101 for me. If the Lions went after a wide receiver, let's say they moved up to get Willis, they were able to get a wide receiver in the 2nd or 3rd, depending on their draft situation, I would love for him to go to the Lions.
So since I sent you the DM, when I sent it to you like two days ago, the odds were at 10.5 was his line. He moved down to 13.5. So he's sitting at 13.5 is his over under pick spot, and minus 130 to go over that, to be picked after that. So I don't know. It's tougher now. Do you think he's a top 10 pick, or do you think he's falling into that 10 to 20?
I think I think that he could be a top 10 pick. Really, you know what it comes down to is Carolina's dumbass.
Exactly.
That's the reality. Because are they going to take Kenny Pickett, who I think that would be a reach as well, or are they going to maybe try to move back? And I think that's the spot. If someone maybe moves in there, I've seen that. I don't know if the Falcons are going to go that way. From everything that I've kind of researched and talked about, they look like they're probably going to take a wide receiver or one of the top defensive guys that they drop down. But it really comes down to Carolina. Like, I don't think Carolina will take Willis, but they want to move back because they have no draft capital because of Darnold. So if someone really wants to get into that spot, that's where we could see it. So I think they could. I think maybe if that's the part, if they move back, then we're looking at that. I like the odds under 13.5 though, because then you could still see some teams that move in there, and I think the odds have gotten better.
Yeah, I think a lot. I haven't heard any talk or any reports, but the Giants pick at 5 is also an interesting one in my opinion because they have 7 as well. So if you want to get in front of Carolina, you're trading with a team that already has a pick at 7, so they might be willing to move back a little bit.
Yeah, and well, the Giants have talked about they don't want to pay 2 top 7 picks. Like that was kind of something that was like a rumor going around that, and I don't know because the new GM there, he's notorious for not moving back. He's notorious for actually moving up with the Bills. He always did it. So there is that still going on. So I don't know if it's smoke or not, but there is something to say is like depending on how the board falls and where the talent's at, there might be comfortable moving one of those picks because they don't want to pay top 10 money to 2 guys.
So
something too is that around that 13 range, 10 to 13, the top players that are really designated as the top players in this class kind of fall, where then it becomes more of a preference thing. So there might be teams that are more willing to move back because they'll still be able to target their guy.
Yeah, there's lots of talk about trading back, and it also brought up a question of, and it made me think of startups because everybody's always trying to move back. Is their value now moving up finally? I think you have seen that in some startups as well.
Isn't it weird how it shifts? Like we've been in startups for the last few years. Like I mean, 3 years ago, you could trade back all the time, and people had no idea what was going on. And then now I've seen really smart people start trading up in the first round, getting their second quarterback, and like they double tap quarterback, and it's very interesting how it shifts, the narrative shift.
But yeah, if everybody's doing it, sometimes the value's on the other side.
Yeah.
I think we've also seen the shift in running backs where we're hitting that age precipice, as well as we don't believe right now. I would say majority of us don't believe that there are that quality pool down to 20 quarterbacks to really choose from. So locking them in early and just kind of filling in with the kind of confused value of the 6th, 7th, and 8th rounds kind of works out.
And I've seen actually, this was something that came up on the timeline of, people starting startups starting with 8 quarterbacks to start. And I actually think there is value going positional player there because say you chase that run and you get the 9th and 11th quarterback or whatever at the end. Now you're also allowing those guys that got the first quarterbacks to get the top positional players, whereas you could try and get 2 top positional players. And then as they fill in positional players, now you're going after Cousins, Tua, and it's another theory question. I've been all about the theory this week. So is he still 101 if he's taken by, or I guess I should just start with which one do you like? Put these 3 spots in order. Washington football team at 11, Houston at 13, New Orleans at 16.
I would go Houston, Washington football team, and New Orleans last, just because New Orleans is such a cap mess, and it's such I think that's a tough situation for any guys to go into because I don't know how well they build around them. Houston is wide open to me. I mean, I like Davis Mills, but can we be honest with what Davis Mills is? Like, I think that's the question. Like, I think Houston's more comfortable just taking 2 guys and then getting a top pick next year and try and go Bryce or CJ. I think the Washington football team could be, or the Commanders or whatever the hell they want to call them there. They could be interesting because Wentz is not good, right? So if you're looking at Wentz and you're looking at that area, like I even talked about it. I said that if somebody goes like Strong or one of these guys goes to Washington later, that would be an interesting for me in Superflex leagues because I think they could overtake Wentz because I think he'll struggle again. And I think that would be an interesting spot for him. So Houston would be number 1 if they could build around him. Washington just because I think he could start early enough and they can kind of fit him in that system.
Do you think do any of those spots kind of sway you from 101?
I mean, yeah, if you went to New Orleans, I'd stay away in terms of just value wise. But the other 2, I'd be okay with it depending on where I'm at as a team. But it really comes down to how you feel. Like, I think he could beat out both those guys. So that's what I look at when they get drafted. Can they beat out those guys and they get that value? But even if he doesn't, look at Trey, like Trey Lance, he played 2 games. I know he got injured. I know he would have started. And I'm a big Trey guy too. He kept the value. So even if he comes in, he comes in for 1 game, blows up, and now we're like, oh, now I have this kind of value here, and I can just kind of move it if I want to.
Yeah. Do you have we've sort of exhausted the 101. We just need Thursday to come. So moving on to some other rookies here. Do you have a clear teardrop in the first round rookie drafts?
Yeah, you and me have done a lot of rookie drafts over the last time. To me, like, I think the 109 right now, without the quarterback landing spot, I think that is, to me, a teardrop, like a big one. it depends on how you feel about Olave or Pickens in that area, because that's where a lot of those guys are going. So I would say I feel comfortable drafting up to the 109, and then from the 110 on, it gets very it gets very muddled, especially depending on the running back situations. But I think it'll matter if the quarterbacks get drafted in the first round, because that's what's happening. I know in your mocks, and I was looking at your data, like a lot of the quarterbacks in the second round, that's not going to be the same. If Corral goes in the first, he'll be in the top 10. So that'll push down some of these guys. And I think that'll see that teardrop kind of go lower and lower.
Yeah. So I've got a clear top 6 tier. Well, they're not all in the same tier. I got Breece at the top, but after 6, starting with 107 is where I see a little bit of a drop, and then again I do see what you're saying at 10, and the quarterbacks with the draft capital is going to really influence things. Pickett and Howell sitting at 111, 112 ish. That I've been saying it for a while, and that once they get drafted, those will probably go up. But now it's looking at Corral's an early second pick, and Howell might be a mid-second pick, so they might actually drop into the early second.
Yeah, and did you hear about Pickens? I don't know if you heard about, he was in the car of something, and like his teammate, and like, so there's talk Pickens going in the second round now, and now if he doesn't get first round draft capital, like Jahan Dotson might jump in there. So like, there's so many question marks after that 109 to me that it gets very muddled.
Do you have a clear teardrop, Tim?
I'd say it's around that area. I know that there's a mixed bag on Spiller, and I think that could be a determining factor in where people rank that drop off, as well as where he goes, because I see Spiller as a volume type of running back, where that's where he's going to find success, and he needs that volume. But if he finds a team that is going to give him that volume, I think that you got to put him back up there. There'll just be a lot less people that actually want to take him based on what they truly feel about his skill set.
The funny thing or interesting thing I've noticed about Spiller is it reminds me a lot of Javonte Williams last year of the 6, 7, 8 spot. He has very little deviation of where he's going. He's not in that top tier, but he's like been clearly ahead of the second round in all the drafts, and just something I thought was interesting. I don't know what we can really gather from that. We need to figure out where he lands and whatnot. Is there a range of picks that you're like aggressively, or it's a little too close to be buying picks, but was there a specific spot that you were really trying to get in the draft?
Well, like I said before, I was trying to get in that 108, 109 range, like above that line. If I could, I would love to get in before I was able to maneuver some guys where I put in like a late first or a late first and a late second, got in the top 5, which is something that I was trying to do, is get into that category of like Wilson, London, Walker, or Hall, wherever they would go. As far as that, if I know I've added some other guys. I actually like the third round, like the early thirds, guys like Pierre Strong, Mechie's in there. And like, there's some guys in there that you could target. So adding those thirds and like deals could probably helped a little bit, but let's be real. They're not going to do a lot. It depends. Like those guys are crapshoots anyway. But I like that area too.
Mechie's been just the absolute steal all off season as an early third. And right now looking at his odds of where they project him to go like late second, like 53. When that happens, he's going to be like a mid-second pick in super flex drafts, I think. So that's what pays off by having your rookie drafts early, is you get to call shots on guys you like a little bit more. It's not all, it's a little hyperbolic, but for the most, a lot of rankings after the draft end up just reflecting draft capital. Let's be honest.
And I was thinking about that the other day. We were talking about that in on the Denver Row, I think, and we were talking about like, it's so funny how you have these rankings, and even Dave Wright was talking to me last night about it. And we have these rankings, and then we just throw it all out as soon as draft capital happens, and then but that's how you get kind of screwed sometimes, because you have a guy, and I kick myself all the time because I'm like, no, I really like this guy, I'm going to take him, and then the draft capital happens, and then I just talk myself out of it. So this year I'm really going to go away from that. I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm going to stick to my rankings. I will use draft capital, obviously, if it's not like a first, second, third round thing. But I'm going to stick to my rankings more, because consensus can be wrong, as we know.
Yeah, look at your right shoulder.
That's right.
It's something I tweeted. I've been saying that for a while, or saying this for a while. I make my tiers according to talent, and then draft capital will affect the tiers.
Yeah.
Unless it's something crazy, then they might hop a tier or not, but it'll keep you from beating yourself up too much later for missing out on a guy you were high on because he got drafted a little later. You got a question for him, Tim?
Yeah, kind of continuing with how we have our rankings of players, and obviously it's before the draft, but like, have you seen any trending risers or fallers either in your preference or just in the space itself that you're kind of either surprised by or just it's something that stays top of mind?
Well, Kyren Williams died, and he, obviously with his testing and stuff, he wasn't someone I was very high on just because I didn't think he was going to test that well. But it is interesting now where he's getting in this weird spot where he's kind of a value depending on where he's going in leagues. It's funny how that kind of shifts. I think that's interesting. I still think Jameson Williams is too low. I think that he could easily be the wide receiver 2 of this class. Like I'm pretty high on Jameson. Based on kind of what I've seen, but he's gone anywhere from the 107 to 111, depending on the draft that you're in. And I still think he could find his way in there. A guy that I really like is Pierre Strong Jr. I think that he's kind of shot up a little bit more than I like. I liked him in the 4th round. I don't like him in the late 2nd. That kind of sucks. So there are that consistencies there. But Kyren is an interesting. Weidemeyer. I mean, I don't think Weidemeyer.
He disappeared. He's on the milk carton ever since the combine.
I don't know how you're drafting that guy. And it's funny, I know, and Duchesne probably knows about this too. When you do rookie drafts with people they're not in it like us, and Weidemeyer goes like 206 or something, I'm just like, hey, it's good that you're here because you got to learn, because then all the dudes just roast him in the chat. Like, what are you doing? And,
soak in the chat, bud.
So I think Weidemeyer, I mean, I don't know how you draft him, to be honest. I just don't.
Kyren's actually an interesting thing because I was always low on him, and I kind of have a thing against Notre Dame in general, but it was sort of just a couple big accounts were hyping him up as an RB3, RB2, and somebody said RB1. I won't say who, but that's what really why everyone I think rooted against him so much. But when he was actually the highest he was ever taken, which was way before the combine when I started keeping this mock data, it was 205. That was the highest he was taken before that. And then he kind of he didn't fall far. I mean, he's now at 212, but he only fell from an ADP of like 209 to 212. Yeah. So like he is still kind of a value, and I'm okay actually taking him there. It was just sort of the echo chamber or whatever, where people kind of thought there was this massive Kyren Williams hype that really wasn't there.
Like the Jamar Jefferson hype of last season.
Yeah.
Woof. I saw him at mocks at 108. I was like, this is not it. The thing with Kyren though is we always like he tested slow, but if he's the receiving back, I really don't think needing top 40 40-yard dash numbers really matters because it's more of a space game anyway, and it's if you can operate in that space or if you can't.
Well, I will say with the amount of running backs in this class, there's just a lot of them. The volume is out there. I don't know how good they are, but there's just a lot of them because of COVID year and all that stuff. If Kyren doesn't get good enough draft capital, I'm definitely out. Like if he falls into that, I mean, obviously in the 4th, 5th, or 6th round, but if he goes like late day 3, but some of these other guys pop up or they get that Atlanta volume or whatever, I'm all on that. Like Kyren's not a guy I'm going to risk myself on. That's just kind of how I feel.
There's just a lot of other targets I have in that area that I prefer to Kyren. You got anything else for him, Tim?
Well, I know we were kind of still talking about the prospects, but I was kind of wanted to find out if you had any sleepers, but it kind of sounds like you kind of talked about Pierre Strong a little bit. I don't know if you had anybody deeper that you were targeting or interested in at all, like that was kind of on a repeat basis or consistent basis. Kind of guy maybe you're not leaving the draft without, something like that.
Oh yeah, now you're talking about. I like Ty Chandler from North Carolina. Yeah. I've been getting him in I think I got him at the 407 last night in a draft. And Ty's a kid from Tennessee who I followed pretty well for Devy purposes. He's good. Like he did really well in the East-West Shrine Bowl that I covered for Fantasy Pros, and the coaches were raving about him. So I think he could get interesting draft capital just based on like what the scouts and everybody's talking about him. Receiving ability, he has it. He's just a very solid back. And I think in the 4th round, that's a shot. Keontae Ingram from USC. Those guys tend to be there. Beatty from Missouri. Like there's those 3 guys in that 4th round that I think could be values. I wouldn't leave the draft with Algier. he was going against I don't know. I don't understand the Algier thing. Maybe you guys can help me with that. Like he was playing against future insurance salesmen at BYU, and he looked good there.
Who was Malik Willis playing against? The kid who was a backup on my JV team at UMass.
Yeah, but at least he looked really good. Algier
he looked really
great.
Well, I saw something cool today. Al Jair was like number 2 or 3 in yards after contact.
He was. I think.
I went and looked because the point of it was to show Breece Hall was really low, and I went and looked at volume. And Al Jair actually had a lot of volume too.
He did.
But
he did. I just but
I'm not huge on him either.
It depends on where he's at. But those guys, Chandler, Ingram, Beatty, but Chandler's a guy that I've really been coveting in that fourth. I like to go for those running backs that can maybe go in that and be number 2 or 3 on their team, that with an injury they could give you some volume this year in that 3rd or 4th round. That's kind of that's my strategy. And now I'm telling Nubs, who's in my league, and he's gonna know what I'm doing here.
It's okay. I'm gonna tell you I really like Ingram. So
there you go.
I have him as my running back 7 in the class.
Okay.
So he's behind the Whites and behind Brian Robinson, I believe. But yeah, I like him a lot. I think he has a 3-down skill set, and I actually think he's going to be one of the biggest risers in rookie drafts after the draft, because I think he goes pretty early in the NFL draft.
All right, so I know you got a lot going on. You're a busy man, and I appreciate you coming on. I really enjoyed the discussion. So I got 2 more questions for you. Who do you want the Cowboys to take, and who do you think they take?
I want him to take Zion Johnson if he's there. I would like us to rebuild our line, because our line it's overrated. It's been overrated for the last 2 years, and it would be nice if he's there. I've heard some talk about it. I don't know if he gets past the Cardinals. I hope he does. I hope the Cardinals do something stupid like they usually do. Thibodeau would be a dream if we moved up. I think that's a pipe dream, though. Who I don't want them to take is freaking Treylon Burks. And if we take Treylon Burks, I am going to lose my mind.
That's where he's sitting right now.
Oh, my God.
His picks.
I know.
Where did Jeff Bell put him in his mock?
He put him at freaking 24, and he put him for the Cowboys because he's a douche. But what I will say, I don't want him to go there, because why would we just not restructure Amari Cooper's deal if we were going to draft a wide receiver with all the other holes that we have on our team? Like, we have so many holes on that team that we need an edge rusher, we need a linebacker, we need some secondary help, we need offensive line help, and then we're going to take a wide receiver even though we have these guys. And it's just
insert that meme of him smacking that thing on that tub of add a wide receiver.
But you know it's going to be, because Arkansas, Jerry's boy. Like, I know I'm ready to get disappointed again, but that's just my life as a Cowboy fan.
I was kind of wondering why you didn't want Treylon Burks, but I can really understand it when you talk about Amari, because like they gave him away for a bag of chips, and there are a lot of needs besides wide receiver.
Yeah, I like Treylon. Like, that'd be great. Sure, maybe move CD back into the slot and do these things. But based on just like Super Bowl and, hey, can we compete because that window's pretty much closed? Like, I feel like that was just a stupid mistake that they made.
And like with that division, you guys should you should own the division. You should be in the divisional weekend every year.
Yeah, every damn year. And Jerry just sits there with his old ass staring at it in this thing. And we just, because he's content. And me and my Dallas friends, we talk about it all the time. As long as he puts a product that looks okay on the field, he makes money, they make the playoffs, that's what he's content with. He is too scared. Catboy, his son, and Jerry are just too scared to make those moves that really got to go for it. And it's frustrating.
Well, I commend you for your allegiance and staying true to the Cowboys through the painful times, because I couldn't do it as a Pats fan. I'm a Bengals fan now. Who day?
Yeah, if you ever want to switch teams, I can always create some profiles of teams for you, and you can select them like the dating game if you want to do that. Come back on as a special guest, and we'll do it again.
You did a great job. That's how
Cowboys to the end. Cowboys.
Are you in Texas?
No, my grandpa was the University of Texas professor, and so I have like that on that side, and then my other family are Niner fans. So like I'm in the middle, and then I don't know how much time he had, but he was a huge Dallas fan. He passed away when I was like 9. He got killed in a drunk driving accident. And so one of the last things he gave me was like a Dallas Cowboy thing. I think it was a helmet. So ever since then, me and my brother were big Dallas fans for him. And so we're in this till the long haul. I mean, we're going to just suffer together. That's how we are.
At least he wasn't a Browns fan.
No. Yeah.
That was a nice story, actually. We definitely had time for that. I want to thank you again for coming on. I really enjoyed this talk. Is there anything you want to plug or throw out there?
No, I mean, hey, if you guys like Devy or college football or even just like rookie talk, we do a lot on Devy Royale. We have a show every Tuesday night at 6:30. Other than that, you can see my written work at Football Guys. I just got there last month. I have 3 articles out. I just did a draft prop bets article today. So if you want to try to make some money, go check it out and let me know how you do.
All right. Well, that's it for this week. Just a quick, easy one. We'll be back next week though, with a more structured pod as we usually have. But Kevin, thanks again for coming on. I really enjoyed this. And 2 sleeps, baby. Let's get to the draft.